Hello, everybody, and welcome to Heartlight Vedic Astrology. In today's talk, I was going to talk about the concept of mundane astrology that not everybody's familiar with, so I thought I'd get into it just a little bit. What is mundane astrology? Well, mundane astrology is a branch of astrology whose subjects are the events of geographical regions, places, countries, and the whole world. So this is quite different from maybe what a lot of people think of astrology. Most people think of astrology as like a personal birth chart or horoscope, which we would also call like a natal horoscope or birth chart. But actually, mundane astrology is considered to be much older, and it used to be more important because it would provide a context for an individual birth chart. And actually, most people couldn't get birth charts, or even famous wealthy individuals would get birth charts, but it was always, assessed in the context of greater world energies. Okay, so other names for mundane astrology are political astrology, geopolitical astrology, judicial astrology, or national astrology. Okay, so what that means is that you can actually draw up a birth chart for different places, events, or collective energy. And, when I talk to people about what I do, they're often surprised that I, can draw birth charts for like different places in the world, or different events in the world. That's kind of a new concept for a lot of people. So that's why I thought I'd talk about it here. Um, and so, like, if I did draw up a birth chart or horoscope for like a country, that would be considered a national chart for that country. Okay. So, the reason why mundane astrology is still important and was probably, more obviously important in the past, or, focused on in the past, is that, it would help to determine or predict political, economic, or natural disaster events, okay, which sometimes can override or preempt an individual's birth chart, okay? And also part of this too is like, at different times and at different places, there's more of an emphasis on global or collective events or energy rather than the individual. So that might also stem from, this mundane astrology might also stem from that, like in terms of current patterns of such. Okay. And even the word disaster actually comes from Old Italian or Middle French. And disaster is actually made up of two words, dis and astro. This is bad, and astro is astrology. So when you talk about disasters, like natural disasters or man-made disasters or any kind of disaster, you're actually referring to astrology, whether you're aware of it or not. Okay. So, also, like, why is this important? Well, any kind of collective energy or world energy or social energy, country energy, city energy, depending on whatever level you're looking at, that will again affect the individuals that are part of that collective. Okay. And so you might consider, we recently came out of the COVID pandemic. Well, a lot of people had very, positive birth charts at that time, and some people had really negative birth charts at that time. The thing is, we were all affected by COVID. Um, again, some probably people who had a very positive birth chart at that time were less affected or less negatively affected, but other people went through a lot of deep transformation. But maybe if they had gotten a reading for their personal birth chart, would not have um, given the scope or the depth of the changes, that happened. Because the thing is, like, even if personally we did pretty well, people in our lives, other people in our lives, whether close family and friends or kind of the social collective, really took a hit during that time. And so the thing is that personal birth charts and personal birth chart readings don't tell the whole story. Okay, and so it's important to get like more of a global or collective context to understand, you know, um, how or why things might occur. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. And so, actually, like these examples are examples of famous birth charts, so famous people, places, moments in time that I've analyzed on the channel. If you want a whole list, I have a birth chart archive list 2025 video you can take a look at. The other thing is that besides the famous birth charts, I also look at collective energy, every month. So I do have a monthly video where I look at the collective energy and how it's shifting. And then my new and full moon and eclipse videos are also about collective energy. And then my solstice videos as well. So, again, if that's interesting to you, you might check those out. But just some examples. So places, I have done a birth chart or national chart for the United States, but also New York State and also New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam is the original name for New York City. Okay. And I've done other places as well, such as Chile, Canada, China, and there are others. Different events that I've looked at is like the Apollo 11 launch, which was the first person on the moon. The Cry of Dolores, which was the Mexican War of Independence, the start of that. The debut of the iPhone, New York Stock Exchange Black Tuesday. So that's the biggest sort of lost day for the New York Stock Exchange in its history. And then even more recent history, there was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Myanmar and Thailand that happened. And so actually, I drew up birth charts for all of these different events as well, besides these places I mentioned. I do also look at famous people and places, famous celebrities, people over time. Some of them more modern, some of them less so. Probably most recently, I looked at Pope Leo XIV's chart since he was recently installed in that position. And before that, in previous years, I looked at Pope Francis's chart since they're both, high-ranking officials in the Catholic Church and have a great influence on people. Because that's the thing is like some of these famous people that I mentioned, they themselves, you can almost think of them as like an event. Some of them are so influential that they will affect, what's going on, for people on an individual level. So, yeah, I've also looked at like King George IV of the UK, Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, computer company, famous artists like Celine Dion, the singer, and Ian Fleming, author of the James Bond series. And I even drew up a birth chart for Mickey Mouse, who's a cartoon, but also a world icon. And he actually has a pretty interesting chart. Yeah, and so the reason why I look at these things, again, I'm a Vedic astrologer. Vedic astrology is ancient Indian astrology that's more than 5,000 years old. And in that tradition, we talk about how anything that happens, like when we're looking at astrology, there are three different components. There's Kala, translated as time. There's Desha, where it's translated as field, and then there's Patra, which translates as leaf. So Kala would be the moment in time. Like if you drew up a birth chart for that moment in time, that will affect, outcomes. And also the Desha is the field. So the field you can think of as like the country or the city or the place, because that's also collective energy. And then the Patra is the individual. That's the leaf that kind of, and again, it's kind of, when you talk about time and field and leaf, leaf is transient. More transient usually than, well, maybe not time always, but, the field, that sort of thing. So there is this sort of notion that individuals are a bit transient, in terms of the collective energy. So, again, when we look at Kala Desha Patra, that's when we get the full scope of what will potentially happen. Okay. And again, a lot of times these days, people just focus on their individual charts without giving context. This idea, there's a whole field within Vedic astrology where we look at auspicious timing. Auspicious timing in Sanskrit is Muhurta. I have a whole playlist on Muhurta. I have several videos on Muhurta. Like recently, at the beginning of this year in January, with the installation of a new U.S. president, I was looking at auspicious timing of starting new leadership. And so in that video specifically, I was looking at Kala, the moment in time of the inauguration, and I was looking at Desha, which was the field, so I was looking at the national chart, and I was looking at Patra, so the new president of Donald Trump. And so looking at each of those variables to see, potentially what was going to be coming our way. Okay. So anyway, just a bit of background, and also, like again, just to reiterate the importance of collective energy in terms of, again, if you do get individual birth chart readings, you always have to think about it and in the context of the greater whole. All right. So yeah, thanks so much for stopping by and listening to me again. If you're new, thanks for stopping by and listening to me for the first time. All of my teaching videos on the subject of Vedic astrology are my consults playlist. They can be found there. Again, for famous birth charts, I would check out my birth chart archive list 2025 video. I do offer individual birth chart readings where you can email heartlightastro@yahoo.com if you're interested in that. And I do have another YouTube channel on natural medicine where I talk about Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine, yoga, homeopathy, and naturopathic medicine. And the name of that channel is Nature Source Care, so that's another resource for you. So again, as always, I hope you found this talk helpful, useful, and interesting to you as you learn to navigate the energy cycles of your own life. All right, so take good care. Namaste.